Greens in Lincoln Heights or Oakwell Farms, and you're even slightly thinking about selling your house, I want you to slow down for a minute because gated communities do not sell the same way as other neighborhoods in San Antonio do. So this is where we see really smart homeowners accidentally lose leverage. Not because their home isn't good, not because the demand isn't there, but because they market and price the home like it's just another listing in the city. In most neighborhoods, if you overprice, you'll probably get loud feedback. You get showings that turn into, we're not sure. You get direct comments. You get price reduction pressure. But in gated communities, especially established ones, the market is quieter. If something feels off, buyers don't argue. They wait. And waiting is where momentum disappears. The showings slow down, the urgency fades, and then you're negotiating from a different position than you would have been just in 1 week. I'm Caroline Deckard. My business partner is Suzanne Marco. We're with the Park Properties Group here in San Antonio, and we work heavily in central and established communities, including the Greens at Lincoln Heights and Oakwell Farms. We love these neighborhoods, and they are a really good solution for a lot of our clients. Today, we're going to talk about these two neighborhoods as hidden gems for sellers, and specifically how amenities and controlled access living attract certain decision-making patterns from buyers. In this video, we're going to talk about buyer behavior in a general sense and what the market tends to reward. We are going to focus on property features, community features, and what those features do for value. And here's the promise of this video as well. If you're thinking about selling in either the Greens or Oakwell Farms, by the end, you're going to know how to position your home so that you're selling the full value of the community, not just the inside of your house. And you're going to know the biggest mistakes to avoid so you don't quietly give away your leverage. And later in the video, we're going to share the most common seller mistakes we see in gated communities. And it's not what most people think. And then we'll give you a simple checklist you can use to decide whether now is a smart time to sell or whether waiting could actually benefit you. Let's walk through a scenario that we see all the time in gated communities, like Oakwell Farms. Imagine a homeowner who's thinking about selling. They look around their house. They immediately think, if we are going to get top dollar, we probably need to renovate. So they start planning a major kitchen update, new countertops, new cabinets, maybe new flooring throughout. And on the surface, this makes a lot of sense. In many neighborhoods, newer finishes absolutely help. But here's where gated communities are different, when we step back and analyze recent comparable sales data inside Oakwell Farms, not the broader zip code, not a nearby neighborhood, just inside the gates, a pattern usually shows up. Buyers aren't making decisions solely on finishes. They're evaluating the entire gated experience, the controlled access, the consistency of landscaping, the maintained common areas, the amenity access, which means the pool, tennis courts, and all of those amazing shady walking areas, which are fantastic. So instead of assuming a major renovation is required, the smarter move is often to ask what actually reduces buyer uncertainty, what actually improves function, and what will clearly show up in the showing experience. In many cases, that means focusing on maintenance clarity, presentation, and positioning, not just gutting a kitchen. And that shift in strategy can preserve your time, your money, and your leverage while still positioning the home competitively inside the gates. And that's really the bigger point here. Selling inside the Greens or Oakwell Farms isn't about doing more. It's about doing the right things in the right order for the way buyers actually make decisions inside those gated communities. By the end of this video, we want you to leave with a new understanding and confidence in getting your home ready to sell. So here's the roadmap. We're going to cover 7 things. First, what's different about buyer decision-making in gated communities? Second, the hidden seller advantages in the Greens at Lincoln Heights. Third, the hidden seller advantages in Oakwell Farms. Fourth, how amenities translate into value without overselling. Fifth, pricing strategy inside the gates, including how buyers compare. Sixth, your seller preparation plan and what to fix, what to leave, and what to document. And seventh, the biggest mistake we see sellers make, and the simple timing checklist. And along the way, we'll give you practical steps you can actually use. We're not doing hype, we're doing strategy. If you live in the Greens at Lincoln Heights or in Oakwell Farms, comment below which neighborhoods you're in. We keep these videos hyper local and we love knowing who they're helping. Okay, let's talk about what's different in gated communities. Well, when someone chooses a gated community, they're not just buying a home. They're buying a framework, controlled access, community rules and standards, the way the neighborhood is maintained, the look and feel as you drive in, the predictability of what surrounds the home. Predictability is undervalued in most listing conversations, but it's a real value driver. Predictability reduces uncertainty, and when the uncertainty goes down, buyer confidence goes up. Confidence doesn't just feel good, confidence changes behaviors. Confident buyers book showings faster, make decisions faster, and negotiate differently than hesitant buyers. So when a seller markets only the interior, the kitchen, the countertops, the floors, but doesn't help a buyer understand the community advantages, they're leaving value on the table. And here's a micro look. Later, we'll show you 3 photos most listings forget to include in gated communities and why these photos can materially impact how quickly a buyer feels confident. Now, let's talk about these 2 communities specifically. The Greens at Lincoln Heights first. The Greens at Lincoln Heights is really one of those neighborhoods that people who know Central San Antonio tend to understand immediately. It's controlled access. There's a gate. It's a central location. It's right there by 281 and has a sense of being tucked in without feeling far away from everything. Location is a value driver that never goes out of style. The Greens is near major corridors, Quarry, near everyday conveniences, H-E-B, Trader Joe's, Whole Foods. It offers controlled access, environment that helps a lot of buyers feel very good about. And for sellers, the advantages is that you're not trying to convince someone of the location. They already understand centrality. What you're doing is showing them how this community offers a certain type of structure and ease. When we talk about the Greens as a seller strategy, we focus on 3 pillars. 1, the gate and entry experience. 2, the central convenience. And 3, the consistency of neighborhood presentation. And here's the mistake we see. Sellers assume buyers only care about inside because the lots can be more manageable and the exterior is simpler. But in the Greens, exterior simplicity is part of the appeal, as long as it's positioned correctly. So let's make this practical. If you're selling in the Greens, the buyer is often comparing a handful of options, other homes inside the gates, plus typically a few alternatives nearby that are not gated. And here's what they're weighing. They're weighing the entry control, they are weighing the maintenance expectations, and they're weighing how will this feel day to day. They're weighing whether the community looks cared for. So you want your listing to answer those questions without ever having to say it directly. You should show the entry, you should show the streetscape, and you should show the consistency. You show the approach to the home. You show the common areas that reinforce that feeling of structure. Now, Oakwell Farms, well, in Oakwell Farms, it's a different type of gated proposition. It's established, it has mature landscaping, it has a larger footprint, and it has amenities that matter, like the pool and the tennis courts and the walking trails, and has a mix of home styles inside the gate. That mix is important because it means buyers are comparing more precisely within Oakwell Farms. They're not just asking, do we like Oakwell Farms? They're asking, which part of Oakwell Farms? Which layout? Which lot position? What kind of maintenance has been done? So, as a seller, the advantage is that Oakwell Farms already carries credibility as an established gated community. The challenge is that buyers are more analytical inside the gates, well, because they have more internal comparisons. There's more homes for sale over there. In Oakwell Farms, we position around 3 pillars as well. One is the controlled access and the established community feel. Big, very important. 2, the amenity lifestyle value, pool, tennis courts, walking areas. And 3, the long-term stability of the neighborhood presentation. And that brings us to the core concept of this video, amenities that track specific buyer decision-making patterns. Again, we're not talking about who the buyer is as a person. We're talking about how people decide. Amenities do 3 things. They reduce friction, they increase perceived lifestyle value, and they signal stability and standards. Reduced friction means a buyer feels like certain experiences are available without needing to build them privately. For example, a pool in a community can reduce the pressure to, do we need a pool at our house? And depending on the buyer's preferences, they can look for a house with a pool or not. It becomes a flexibility point, not a requirement. Increased perceived lifestyle value means the buyer sees benefits beyond the walls of the home. That matters in negotiation because it supports the story of value. Signal stability means amenities and maintained common areas suggest the community is managed, cared for, and predictable. Now, well, we have to be honest. Amenities do not give you permission to overprice. That is a very big misconception. Amenities support value when the pricing is aligned with real comparable sales. Amenities can increase confidence and speed, but they don't magically change what the market will bear. So let's talk about pricing inside gated communities, because this is where sellers get hurt quietly, unfortunately. Here's the simple framework we use. In gated communities, buyers compare in this order. First, they compare within the gates. Second, they compare within the immediate surrounding area, which makes sense. And third, they compare broader alternatives if they have to. So if you're priced above your internal gate competition, your buyer will notice that first. And if the justification isn't obvious, they hesitate. And in gated communities, hesitation looks like silence. So what do we actually do as listing agents? We don't just pick a number. We build a pricing argument that includes recent sales data inside the gates, current active competition inside the gates, differences in lot positioning, differences in layout utility, differences in condition and maintenance. And then we make a decision based on what outcome you want. Speed, certainty, or maximum price within a specific, realistic range. If you're watching this and you're thinking, we're not listing tomorrow, but we might list next year, save this video. This is the exact strategy and conversation we have in listing appointments. Now let's talk about what buyers tend to look for inside these 2 neighborhoods. Not as demographics, not as decision criteria, but just really what they're looking for. Condition clarity. In established communities, buyers expect homes to have history. They don't necessarily expect new, but they do expect to understand what has been well maintained. So the seller who wins is the seller who can tell a clear condition story. Roof age, HVAC age, water heater, foundation history if applicable, recent improvements, service records, warranties if they exist. That clarity reduces buyer uncertainty. Second, layout utility. Buyers in gated communities often care about how the home functions day to day. Does the space have flow? Is there flexibility? Are the rooms usable? Does the home feel bright? Does it feel maintained? Third, community fit. Again, not who the buyer is, but whether the buyer's lifestyle preferences match what the community offers. Amenity access, walking areas, the feel of the streets, the gated experience. And here is a micro hook. In a minute, we're going to talk about the 3 pre-listing upgrades that are almost always worth doing in gated communities because they show up in the showing experience immediately. Before we get to the upgrades, let's talk about the biggest seller mistakes, and then we'll give you the fix. The biggest mistakes we see is marketing the house, but not marketing the community. Most listing packages are built like this: interiors, kitchens, bathrooms, bedrooms, backyard, done. And that's how a normal listing works in many neighborhoods. Well, in gated communities, we think a buyer is also interested in what is surrounding the house. So if your photos include things like what they can experience when they go in the gates, the amenities, that is much better for the house. So here's the fix. We built a listing that intentionally includes community value proof like clear photos of the gated entry and the signage, photos of the maintained streetscape, and tasteful photos of the community amenities. For example, Oakwell Farms, pool, tennis courts, walking paths, whatever applies. And in the description, we don't oversell. We simply state the facts. Controlled access, community amenities, established landscaping, HOA structure, proximity to central corridors. All right, now let's get practical. Seller preparation plan. We're going to give you a framework that you can use whether you list with us or not. We call it the 4-layer prep plan. Layer 1, safety and function. Layer 2, maintenance and condition clarity. Layer 3, presentation and first impression. Layer 4, documentation and confidence. Layer 1, safety and function. Well, this is basic, but it matters. Doors and locks functioning. Lights functioning. Change the light bulbs. Obvious trip hazards addressed. Handrails secured. Anything that will jump out in an inspection or showing as a functional issue. Layer 2, maintenance and condition clarity. This is where gated community buyers pay attention. Filters changed. Very simple. HVAC serviced. Minor leaks addressed. Irrigation working. Roof and gutters checked. These are small things that signal this house has been cared for. Layer 3, presentation and first impression. This is curb appeal, entry feel, scent, the smell, lighting, and staging choices. And in gated communities, first impressions include the approach to the home. Driveway cleanliness. Landscaping is trim. The front door is nicely painted. There's front porch lighting. Layer 4 is documentation and confidence. This is where you win negotiations. Receipts, service records, warranties, HOA documents ready. A simple list of improvements and dates. Now, the 3 pre-listing upgrades that were almost always worth doing in these communities, not because they're trendy, but because they remove friction. 1, lighting. Warm, consistent lighting makes a home feel cared for. 2, paint touch-ups, especially around the trims and doors. Not necessarily repainting the whole house, just removing the wear signals. And 3, landscaping cleanup. Fresh mulch, trim edges, clean beds. It signaled a maintained standards, which aligns with the gated community story. Those are three often higher return on investments that are worth more than some massive renovation. Now let's address the renovations, because this is where sellers can waste some time and money. Here's our rule: renovate for function, not for trends. In established gated communities, buyer will pay for function and condition clarity. They will not always pay for a fully customized trend refresh. So we ask 3 questions before recommending any major work. Does this fix a functional problem? Does this reduce buyer uncertainty? And will this show clearly in the showing experience? If the answer is yes, maybe it's worth it. If the answer is it's just prettier, we slow down, because prettier is subjective and expensive. Now, showing strategies in gated communities are important. The reason this is important is because it's one of the biggest reasons people choose these communities is they value a sense of structure and privacy. So you don't want the selling process to feel chaotic. Well, we'll put it that way. We prefer controlled showing windows, strong communication, and intentional scheduling. That helps the seller, and it also helps the buyer feel like the experience is organized. And here's something that sellers don't always realize: if showings feel messy, buyers interpret that as this home might be difficult, or maybe this is not the right house for me, even if that's not true. Now let's talk about what amenities attract buyer types. What that really means in a compliant way, it means amenities attract certain decision priorities. For example, a buyer who prioritizes predictability and structure may prefer gated entry and consistent maintenance standards. A buyer who values shared recreation may see a pool and tennis courts as meaningful. A buyer who values ease may appreciate an HOA framework that supports consistent exterior presentation. As a seller, the goal is to align your listing story with those decision criteria. Now let's do a quick mini case study framework that you can use. So, if you're in the Greens, your listing story typically leans into central convenience, plus controlled access, plus consistent presentation. The strongest listings in the Greens show a clean approach, a clean entry, a clean layout, and strong maintenance. If you're in Oakwell Farms, your listing story typically leans into established, gated environment, plus amenity access, plus mature landscaping, plus long-term stability. The strongest listings in Oakwell Farms show condition clarity, documentation, and community value. Now, the pricing strategy again, but a little deeper, because this is the part that makes or breaks leverage. We use a simple 4-step pricing method. Step 1, identify the most similar sold comps inside the gates. Step 2, identify similar active competition inside the gates. Step 3, adjust for differences that matter: lot position, updates, condition, layout, utility. Step 4, choose a pricing posture based on your goal. Pricing posture means we're trying to be the obvious best value, the market aligned choice, or the premium choice with premium proof. Premium only works when the proof is obvious. Otherwise, premium becomes confusing, and confusing becomes quiet. And quiet is not your friend when it comes to selling. Engagement check. If you're still with us, comment value below. It helps more sellers find this video, and we generally do read the comments. Now, let's talk about the HOA element, because this is another hidden gem for sellers when handled correctly. HOA structure can create confidence, not because HOA is good universally, but because in these communities, the HOA often supports the predictable environment that buyers are choosing. So, as a seller, you want to be prepared. You want to know the basics, like what are the dues, what's covered, the key rules. that affect the property and any recent changes, and where documents can be reviewed. When sellers can answer the HOA questions clearly, buyer feels safer, and safe buyers move forward faster. Now, inspections and negotiations. Another place sellers get caught off guard is with inspections and negotiations. In established neighborhoods, inspections are normal, but what matters is how you respond. The most successful sellers are not the sellers who promise perfection. They're the sellers who show they've maintained the home and they negotiate reasonably. I'm Caroline Deckard with Park Properties Group at the Phyllis Brown & Company. If you're thinking about selling your home in the Greens or in Lincoln Heights, the Greens at Lincoln Heights or in Oakwell